Hello everyone, welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is, my grandfather left me an old violin. There was a sheet of music rolled up inside. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. If you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe, become a resident of Hill Street, and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. My grandfather, who I called Vo as he was Portuguese, lived a long life. Naturally, that meant he had a lot of stories. A World War II veteran, Vo piloted a British Gloucester Gladiator out of the Azores and shot down a German Dornier Do bomber. Later, when the war was won, he went on to a career as a traveling insurance salesman, which, let's be frank, would be a tedious job for most, but his tales of adventure on the road were always engaging. Vo also taught himself how to read music and play fiddle, so the majority of his tales were scored by the sweet strands of his aged violin and the crackle of a fireplace. My memory of my grandfather has been cast in a rosy glow all my life, until he died. Far from a wealthy man, there were a few items he had picked up over the course of a life which spanned over 100 years that made the reading of his will an affair worthy of the man who wrote it. Chief among these curios was my Vo's old fiddle, a beautifully crafted instrument of fine curves and rich dark wood. Like my grandfather, I too am a musician. Unlike my Vo, I make my living playing music. Perhaps the trait was inherited through him, honed by a generation between. Perhaps I was luckier than he was. Or far more likely, perhaps Vo never really cared to play music professionally and just enjoyed the feel of the violin in his hands. Whatever the case, while my Vo was a truly gifted storyteller, his skill at fiddling was not quite professional grade. As a bit of a tribute to him, I had begun playing the instrument at an early age and won my Vo's praises on more than one occasion with my dexterity, fingers flying and flexing across the neck of my own violin. As good as I got, Vo never let me play his old fiddle, no matter how many times I asked. In fact, no one but Vo himself ever touched the instrument. So when the executor of his estate, a laughably aggrandized title for the shrimpy little lawyer who handled my Vo's last will and testament, gathered us in his office the day after we returned my dear Vo to the earth, it was a shock to see someone else's hands on the treasured fiddle. The bigger shock came a few moments later. Amid much protestation from my cousins and aunts, Vo had left his beloved fiddle to me, his youngest grandson. I too had been taken aback, though, looking back on it now, I shouldn't have been. I was, after all, the only professional musician in the family, and to my knowledge, the only one who actually played violin at all. Who else should have received the instrument? In any case, I left the room with a smile, a deeper love for my lost Vo, and a new, well, very old, violin. At first, I was reluctant to play it. It felt wrong, almost perverse, to play a dead man's fiddle, one that he had let no other living soul so much as touch while he was alive. But the shape of the neck fit in my palm so well, as if it was made for me. It was a delicate thing, my Vo's violin, but it yearned to be touched, to be played. I poured myself a glass of port, Vo's favorite drink, and lit a fire. If I was going to play, I was going to play it how he would have. I opened the case. There it was, my Vaux's fiddle, lounging like a woman in waiting, draped in velvet. I cradled it gingerly and lifted it, and then something peculiar happened. Something I wish never had. A small yellow scrap of parchment tumbled out of one of the fiddle's F-holes. I stared at it, bewildered. Then I picked it up. It was a sheet torn from a larger piece of music, scrawled by hand on a paper so thin and ancient, its existence alone made no sense. The notes were legion. It was a complex piece. Who knows how long it had been in there, or where it came from, or who had written it? I was over the moon. What a gift! I laid the sheet down, carefully, very carefully, and was set to place my Vaux's fiddle beneath my chin, when a corner of the sheet music curled up from the table. I noticed more markings on the back. I turned it over with a delicate touch. There, in black ink, I saw the hand of my grandfather reaching out to me from the void of infinity. Nito, I could never quite get this one. Perhaps you will succeed where I failed. Ayumo você, Vaux. Reading those words made my eyes water, knowing my grandfather had not only always intended to leave me his violin, but that he also appreciated my talents was more of a gift than anything else. I flipped the little sheet of music back over, brought my Vaux's fiddle beneath my chin, raised my bow, and played. The piece was, indeed, quite challenging. I worked at it for more than an hour, my fingers popping and straining to make the shapes to bring the scrawled marks to life through sound. Finally, mercifully, I got it, and it was beautiful. Tra-da-da, tra-da-dee-da-da, tra-da-da. The melody was intoxicating, ephemeral, everywhere. It literally filled the room. Tears flowed. It was one of the best moments of my life. That was a week ago. The tune, that melody, it lingers. I hear it, always. It never leaves me. It's haunting me, looping, repeating, growing louder. It burns. I feel it spreading in my mind like spilled ink, blackening the creases and folds, expanding. It nibbles the back of my eyes, catches in my throat, pushes from the inner parts of my ears. Did my Vaux know? Did he know what this was? Was he laughing at me somewhere? It's been 2 weeks. I have found no solace, no silence, no respite from this haunting melody. Tra-da-da, tra-da-dee-da-da, tra-da-da. Last night, I did something drastic. It was the only option left. I had to free myself. I drank half a bottle of port to help it go easier. I took 2 pencils. I brought them to my ears. I pushed. I can still hear it. Tra-da-da.